I'm not making this up. I looked into these stories. I dug. I found primary source quotes, in other words, out of the horse's mouth, not someone said, not a headline misreporting, not a misleading article, but actual tweets, text, statements from professors from university websites that support the idea that math is inherently racist, that grammar is inherently racist. Yeah, proper grammar. For example, you grew up in a certain part of America. The education you received, the way you learned to speak, was not in harmony with the way people were learning in most of the rest of the country. So you learned with improper grammar because of your environment. The school system didn't really support you. Now you are able to make it into college. But now in college, you will be penalized for improper grammar, improper word usage, and therefore that is a racist construct. Instead, you should be graded based on your effort, not grammar if it's an English writing assignment. Math, to say 2 plus 2 is 4, is also racist. I've written an article on this. Grammar is racist. Math is racist. And so are you. And again, I address these things because they make a mockery of dealing with real issues of racism. They make a mockery in looking at any lingering effects from our past history in America. They make a mockery of that, and they allow people to just scorn the whole subject. And when I say math is racist, grammar is racist, so are you. If you dare question it, then that proves you are racist. Oh yeah. Okay, so last month, there was a story, got a lot of circulation. Rutgers University declared grammar to be racist. It was one professor had made certain statements. The professor said she was misunderstood. Fact checkers have challenged that. Different fact checkers have challenged that. So let's step back from that. But February 21st, 2017, University of Washington produced an anti-racist poster which insists American grammar is racist and an unjust language structure, promising to prioritize rhetoric over grammatical correctness. So if you really say the thing with passion, even if it's grammatically full of error, then you're going to get good English grades for that. As explained on the university's Tacoma-based website, racism is the normal condition of things. Linguistic and writing research has shown clearly for many decades that there is no inherent standard of English. Language is constantly changing. These two facts make it very difficult to justify placing people in hierarchies or restricting opportunities and privileges because of the way people communicate in particular versions of English. So here's the point. English is not standardized across the country. For example, in the South, you could use the expression, I'm fixing to do this. But in New York, if you're fixing, you've got a tool in your hand. You're fixing something. There are expressions that we use. There are words we use. Words then get picked up. Urban vocabulary gets picked up. The word woke got picked up by the mainstream, things like that. So there's no standard. And therefore, to subject people to that standard, now they get into a higher educational setting. That's racist. Because obviously it's the white grammar, the predominant grammar, the elite grammar, that's considered proper English. Now, what's interesting is that statement used proper English. That statement was grammatically correct. That statement used capitalization. That statement put periods where they belonged. That statement used conjunctions and prepositions and nouns and verbs properly. Why? Because there are basic rules. There are basic rules. And if you don't communicate using those basic rules, you will be misunderstood. And if you're in college to learn certain skills to equip you for the workplace, to equip you for a career, then you have to learn to use words properly. That's not racist. You say, but it's unfair because a lot of kids growing up in the inner city don't have good educational opportunities. They've got a few strikes against them. That's a big question. That's a massive question. That's a giant issue. And do we need to make school vouchers possible for them so they can go to other schools? And what can we do together as a country to help address some of these real issues? The whole purpose, though, of education then is to correct the errors and fill in the truth and give right, helpful information. Okay, let's go further. Professor Walter Williams, the Daily Signal, September 11th, 2019, wrote this. Just when we thought colleges could not spout linear ideas, we have a new one from American University. They hired a professor to teach other professors to grade students based on their labor rather than their writing ability. So the newly hired professor, Asao B. Inoue, who interestingly enough also served as a professor at the aforementioned University of Washington in Tacoma, he's the new prof there. Williams noted that Inoue believes that a person's writing ability should not be assessed in order to promote anti-racist objectives. And then we taught American University's faculty members that their previous practices of grading writing promoted white language supremacy. Friends, this is utterly ridiculous. I do understand the issue that is being raised. You know, for example, standardized tests have been used, SATs, PSATs, for decades. And wherever you are in the country, as far as I know, everybody takes the same test. Well, there are kids, grew up in the inner city many, many years ago, decades ago, I saw this, and used certain vocabulary certain ways. And when they would get to these tests, they would do really poorly on them. And then to illustrate the point, kids that grew up, say, white kids in suburbia, they were given a test in language that would be more appropriate for inner city kids, and they bombed on those tests because the vocabulary was so different. I understand the issues. I don't understand them deeply. In other words, I don't work within that children's education field, but I understand the issue. I even understand the point these guys are making. But you are trying to get some level of uniformity in a culture. There is a reason, for example, where if you are on primetime TV or if you're a sportscaster or something like that, you don't use profanity. All right. And then you may have a live event that's on cable and they use it because it's a different setting and they're allowed to. So it's understood. There are certain protocol. There are methods of communication. I go on further. Yeah, how about a lecture from this professor, Creating Anti-Racist Writing Assessment Ecologies in Writing Courses? Okay, let's move over to math. Let's move over to math. August 9th, 2020, so just a couple days ago, Campus Reform announced that math professors and academics at top universities, including Harvard and the University of Illinois, discussed the Eurocentric roots of American mathematics on Twitter. They asserted that the statement 2 + 2 = 4 is rooted in Western definitions of mathematics. So Ben Zeisloff reports Lori Rubel, who teaches math education at Brooklyn College, says that the idea of math being culturally neutral is a myth, that asking whether 2 + 2 = 4 reeks of white supremacist patriarchy. Oh, but of course, obviously. And hey, I was always good at math. Talk about white supremacy, right? Oh, and Jewish white supremacy on top of it. So here's her tweet. Along with the, of course, math is neutral, 2 + 2 = 4 trope, are the related and creepy, math is pure, and protect math. So these are quotes. So math is pure, protect math. It's creepy. Reeks of white supremacist patriarchy. Oh yeah, protect math, reeks of white supremacist patriarchy. She said, I'd rather think on nurturing people and protecting the planet with math in service of them goals. Oh, did she intentionally use poor grammar to prove a point? She added, the idea that math or data is culturally neutral and in any way objective is a myth. I'm ready to move on with that understanding. Who's coming with me? I mean, to me, this stuff is as simple as 2 + 2 = 4. But, however, that's not racist to even say it. All right, now let's step back from this for a moment. There are arguments that the way data is used and processed in America puts certain people at disadvantage. Could be. That's possible. But that does not. So you look into those issues. I'm always open-minded to look into issues. And when people say there's more going on in the U.S., I'm open-minded to look into that. But come on. To say that 2 + 2 = 4 is not simple, objective truth, to say it reeks of white supremacy, to me, that reeks of a social madness that reeks of a massive educational philosophy of deconstructing truth. And friends, this is what universities have been about for years. And we need more and more universities that teach facts and history and truth. History is taught now, geography is taught. How do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? And then here, decades ago, there was something called feminist geography. I remember reading about this years ago. So in my article, I talk about it. Feminist geography emerged in the 1970s when members of the women's movement called on academia to include women as both producers and subjects of academic work. Feminist geographers aim to incorporate positions of race, class, ability, and sexuality into study of geography. So how do you do that? You're looking at the topography of Greenland, or the size of Iceland, or the borders of Mexico, and how will you incorporate positions of race, class, ability, and sexuality in the study of geography? So the Wikipedia article says, the discipline has been subject to several controversies. So instead of the so-called 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic, today the 3 R's would rather be described as revisionist, radical, and ridiculous. It's as simple as A, B, C. There you have it. Call me what names you want.